Hello, and welcome to today's session. Has your warehouse operation outgrown your ERP? I'm Roberto Michel, Senior Editor for Modern Materials Handling, and I'll be your moderator for this webcast, being brought to you by Numina Group, a warehouse solutions integrator and software company. Our topic today is how the capabilities and limitations of different software systems align with the challenges of running a modern warehouse fulfillment operation. In particular, the presentation will delve into how enterprise resource planning, ERP systems, tend to have limitations when it comes to coordinating systems and processes on the warehouse floor in a more real-time manner. As our presenters from Numina will explain, ERP systems generally were not designed to handle today's complex warehouse requirements. Even traditional warehouse management system solutions, which govern warehouse master data and processes, may not excel at orchestrating today's breadth of warehouse automation and robotics solutions. These limitations have given rise to a software space known as WES or WES, which stands for Warehouse Execution Systems. That may sound like quite an alphabet soup, but our presenters will put things in perspective through the lens of today's warehouse fulfillment objectives. Today, we have with us Cody Up, Senior Vice President with Numina, and Dan Hanrahan, President and CEO of Numina. They will explain their roles and today's challenges in fulfillment operations when it comes to integration and orchestration of the warehouse floor, and what type of capabilities operations should consider. Cody will lead off our presentation, but before I turn it over to him, a couple of our notes for our audience. We'll have time for a short Q&A session, so please submit any questions you may have at any time using the feature for that on the webcast screen. We'll get to those questions later, and if we don't get to your question, we'll move it over to our presenters, and they'll be able to respond to you via email. With that, welcome, Cody. Please take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Roberto. And thank you, MMH, and to everyone who's joined today's webinar. We're incredibly excited to kind of share our thoughts and perspectives around the warehouse execution software landscape, the WMS landscape, as well as how that ties into the broader ERP category. With me today is my colleague, Dan Hanrahan, President and founder of the Numina Group. Dan, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I have spent my entire life really in process automation. As you can see, I'm the founder of the company. We started as a custom software business and really built over the years, our 37 years now in business, a very powerful and scalable warehouse execution, warehouse control platform. So today we'll be walking through what is that, what entails warehouse execution solutions, and then what are the automation components that can be added to that system to take better processes and be able to magnify their performance.
Great. And for the sake of introductions, again, my name is Cody Up. I have the honor and privilege of running the commercial organization at the Numina Group. My background stems from warehouse management software applications from both a commercial and a technical perspective, implementing UP software as well as Oracle Cloud WMS across dozens of different applications and environments. I then went on to the mobile robotics space, working for a company called 6 River Systems, until the eventual acquisition of that organization to Shopify, when I had the opportunity to join the Numina Group. So today we've got a packed agenda. You can see on the screen here, we'll be talking about a number of different topics, primarily around what are the capabilities of your existing ERP? What is this category that we're talking about called warehouse execution software? What are the capabilities and functionality that you would expect out of execution software? And then what I find most important is what are the automation opportunities available to you when you do have execution software as a part of your supply chain technology stack? And what is the value that we can derive and most importantly, quantify against that automation and the broader execution platform? So let's get into it. So Dan touched on this, but I think it's worthy of spending just another moment. The Numina Group has over 160 active customers running on its warehouse execution software platform. Varying levels of complexity, sophistication, and levels of automation reside in our customers' environments. But what's what's at the nucleus of all of them is RDS, the real-time distribution software platform that the Numina Group develops and supports. We span the gamut when it comes to industry segments, as you can see on the right-hand side. I think what's noteworthy here is that we do our own in-house development, deployment, and support all out of our Chicagoland offices. We've got over 70 resources spanning both software engineering, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, and industrial engineering in order to provide full lifecycle support to all of our customers from point of origin to point of destination. So let's jump into it. I think the first category that I'd like to kind of expound upon is ERP functionality and limitations. And there's a few things that we should get out of the way first. I think the first, couple of minutes here, we should spend debunking some myths around warehouse software. So first and foremost, ERP applications will have some form of inventory module, and that can extend itself into more pure play warehouse management software capabilities. But I think it's really important, first and foremost, that we get out of the way of this thought process that scaling your business means requiring a WMS to support it. The first order of business when any business scales is really rooting itself in its system of record. For most organizations, this is their ERP application. I think what we want to present to you today is effectively a fork in the road, a decision that your organization gets to make, whether or not it expands off of its ERP with warehouse management software, or if it takes another route and expands its ERP with warehouse execution software. The second myth that we'd like to kind of debunk here early and often is this idea that ERPs easily integrate with automation. If you've ever explored any automation opportunities and the integration requirements to those automation solutions off of your ERP, what you'll often find is that the workflows don't even exist for the data exchange to occur to and from that automation. And again, we'll talk about how, more than anything, warehouse execution software function as an integration layer to and from your automation and peripheral technology that sits on the operational floor. And then third, but certainly significant, is the fact that many believe that ERPs alone are sufficient to achieve modern day fulfillment requirements, specifically in the omni-channel. I think the two data points that I'll share with you here is, from an e-commerce perspective, very, very rarely do ERPs have the sophistication from an order release and a batching capability to handle the characteristics of an e-commerce order profile. And then the second data point really being to achieve a level of sophistication in your retail partners, your retail trading partners, and to be able to comply with all the compliance requirements from a retail perspective, you're not going to find those capabilities within an ERP alone. And so to be able to achieve omni-channel fulfillment capabilities, oftentimes you're having to start looking elsewhere, again, either into the WMS ecosystem or the warehouse execution software ecosystem. There are some truths that we can call out, though. I think, broadly speaking, we can all agree that a single system of record for master data is a critical technology stack strategy. And the reason I point this out is in the warehouse management software ecosystem, oftentimes you're duplicating master data, specifically around item master, inventory master, and location master. And what this leads to is incompatibility and duplication of master data sitting in two different databases, which we could probably spend a whole hour kind of untying why that's maybe a poor strategy. The second truth that we can call out is that over time, over the last really 10, 15 years, ERPs have listened. They've really built pretty foundational capabilities inside the four walls of your warehouse for you to receive orders, for you to process orders, for you to pack orders, for you to ship orders. But it's thin, but it's broad. And that is categorically what ERPs are there for. ERPs are supposed to be a mile wide and inch deep across the entirety of your business. What we find is that ERPs, again, although they have built out the capabilities to functionally operate your buildings today, they lack the performance capabilities. They have focused on the kind of the pillars of the tenets of the data, but not necessarily the performance of the operation itself. And that's where warehouse execution software comes in. To the third point, WES is really almost purpose-built for ERPs that are containing this base WMS functionality that we'll talk about on the next slide. but that is effectively our commercial strategy. Our commercial strategy is to provide supplementary capabilities to ERPs such that organizations don't have to go through that painful installation or implementation of a WMS, of which there's going to be many, many duplicative capabilities in both that ERP and that WMS, pointing to the second truth that we just talked about. So let's jump into that. I won't go through all of these, but I do want to point out that these are the capabilities that I was referencing. These today's ERP applications really should have these basic capabilities of receiving inventory on a purchase order in ASN, maybe doing a quick QC check, maybe first article of inspection even, and then being able to drive put away transactions to either reserve inventory or active bin locations. For a warehouse execution software to functionally operate, we need an ERP to be able to have inventory bin management. In essence, a warehouse execution software resides on this idea that a ERP has the ability to allocate inventory against an order and against specific locations in your warehouse. Where warehouse execution software starts to kick in is once that allocation has been made and that task has been created. That's when the warehouse execution software starts to be able to shuffle the deck of the orders to be able to drive optimization on the floor. The fourth point here and the fifth point is really regarding the tasks that are driving the activities in the warehouse with both replenishment and picking. And what we find is, again, very, very rudimentary, but foundational capabilities in managing min-maxes on a replen perspective and triggering tasks to go ahead and fill up those active pick locations. And then from a picking perspective, there's dozens and dozens of ways in which we can achieve density and pick rate performance by just the method at which we're picking these orders. Where we see in the ERP application, it's pretty limited, right? It's pretty limited to discrete order picking, but nonetheless is supporting your operation today. And I'll tie this off with pack and ship and returns processing. Again, the ERP providers have built the capabilities for your operation to run. The argument that we're putting in front of you is, do they have the capabilities for you to flourish? Do they have the capabilities for you to establish a high performance operation? And I think one of the things that we wanted to do to kind of set the stage as I pass this over to Dan is to maybe call out some situations that you might find yourself in that warrant the exploration of an execution software. So I won't read these to you line by line, but broadly speaking, I think when you start finding yourself having to add labor at the same pace at which you are growing, that's a pretty good sign that you should be evaluating a performance layer that sits underneath your ERP. Again, that performance layer that I'm referencing is a warehouse execution software. Because what we should see is as volume increases, as operations achieve volume, they should also achieve decreasing variable costs per order as a function of being able to do different things when we have large order volumes. Additionally, when you start seeing that you're not as competitive from a service level agreement, when your competition may be winning as a function of their ability to get to the speed to market, their ability to bring products to the doorsteps of their consumers faster than you, that is a very good indication that you should be exploring warehouse execution software. When you're running out of building space or you're desiring to implement automation, again, these are the core capabilities of execution software. Before I get to the last point here, I'll reference when you're starting to consider, do you need additional capabilities in your WMS or in your ERP, and you're considering a WMS? Again, that fork in the road as it relates to your technology stack should absolutely consider a warehouse execution software for a number of reasons. Most importantly, warehouse execution software focuses on performance. Warehouse management software focuses on master data. Again, the situation that we continually find our customers in is when they deploy a WMS, they end up having many, many duplicative capabilities and features to that of their existing ERPs as these ERPs continue to build out, again, those more database functions of the warehouse. And the last point that I'll mention, which Dan tends to laugh at every time we talk about it, is when your parking spots in your lot are all filled up because you keep hiring more and more warehouse workers, that's also a pretty good indication that you should start evaluating a performance layer such as a warehouse execution software. So with that said, I wanted to set the stage for what it looks like to evaluate warehouse execution software, what the differences are between your ERPs, inventory control, and warehouse management software capabilities, and what it might look like in the future if you were to bolt on an execution platform. So with that, I'll pass it over to Dan.
All right. Well, thank you, Cody. You really set the stage very well. So let's just get into those components and talk through what is a warehouse execution system, the components that make that up. And when you think of it, very much, a little repetitive of what Cody was saying, it's all about accelerating the performance within the warehouse operations. And what does that start with? Many times you look at an ERP, again, good capabilities to release orders, sometimes in that discrete manner. And I'll walk into places, I must have seen 100 different distribution centers where we see the operation of the order release process really relying on tribal knowledge. There's somebody at the desk who knows that operation, knows the warehouse, knows the business, has been with the company maybe 15, 20 years or more, shuffling paperwork, taking paper and creating optimization for zone starts, creating batch orders by putting like orders together that start in zones, sometimes taking labels that might have been shipped from an order system such as Shopify, and then matching these labels up with paperwork and handing that out to the workforce, or having a runner, water spider, taking that to the different zones. So it could be 1 to 2 people being involved in manually moving paperwork to start executing the orders. We want to streamline that. We want to start with the processes looking at receiving. If it's backed up on the dock doors and so forth, are there technologies that can be utilized to streamline receiving, streamline that put away process? So the warehouse execution system is managing the better practices and processes and acting as that integration layer, that warehouse glue that connects that latest generations of technologies to your business system. And it's all about increasing order throughput, reducing labor costs, reducing reliance on that tribal knowledge or manual knowledge of your process, having the system, systematically drive the efficiencies across the operation. And warehouse execution, very interesting across the industry, is measured by performance. When we're evaluating technologies and performing the design and selection of technology in partnership with our customers, what we're always looking at is comparative technologies. What does a manual batch pick cart with, say, voice perform at versus a AMR-based system, or moving that to a goods-to-person system? So we're looking at and contrasting traditional technologies with various levels of automation, deciding really what gives the best return on investment for that customer. But more importantly, how do we have a roadmap that's a scalable solution for the customer? So that architecture looked at graphically, where the WES, WCS layers of RDS sits, which is a little bit of a hybrid. As Cody pointed out earlier, real-time distribution software is our product name for our warehouse execution, but it had started as a control system. So it has still real-time control capability. So it has both the execution layer and the control layer. And it's integrating that data flow, getting the orders, executing the orders, releasing waves or continuous waves of orders. An important component within the system is not only that order release, but an advanced cartonization algorithm we'll touch on a little bit later. Integrates different picking suites, voice, pick to light, the AMRs, integrating to AMRs, goods to person, complementing the movement of product, conveyor, sorting, controls and automation, and that major component that is really part of the three-legged stool, as we always say. The order fulfillment has the component of picking, packing, and shipping. They all three have to be in balance. So really applying the right type of technologies to create that pull-through aspect at the shipping area, the right technologies. Orchestration. So in that order release orchestration is really getting the orders from the ERP, shuffling the deck, making sure we optimize orders for the release based upon different business rules. Can be carrier-based wave creation, continuous parcel release, along with wave release for LTL and truckload type shipping, and having those processes synchronized where if there are LTL orders that are being released that may be full case picking that's occurring in one sector of the warehouse and parcel each picking split case is happening in another portion of the parcel, that the processes are synchronized and they're released and unite together, where if there's full case and split case orders that are going to the same customer, they need to be delivered to the dock area for staging within a time window that's synchronized together. Order prioritization, very key for customers in medical or same day delivery. If you have customer commitments that you will get that order out the same day, you need to ensure that the warehouse order release process releases that order within the time frame that is going to flow through the distribution center to ensure you meet those carrier cutoff rules. And then additional business flag rules. Does the ERP allow for certain customers back orders? Do certain orders only have to ship complete? These are the logics that then can be executed, and it's not relying on people, but the systematically driving these processes throughout the warehouse. Again, starting orders at the right place, and then in the travel and picking and order fulfillment processes, not only be able to look at path optimization, but look at how we can cluster orders and say batch picking if it's a AMR or a batch pick cart, and get like type visits together. So we cut down those visits and increase the picking density during a travel picking visit. Cartonization, key. Many ERP systems and even WMSs lack really advanced cartonization. And advanced cartonization versus, say, a standard fluid model where everything has same kind of cube and is being poured in fluidly into a carton to come up with the size of the shipping container. We want to take in multiple algorithms, and that's what an advanced cartonization does. It's looking at minimum bounding rectangles, it's looking at fluidity, it's looking at compressibility logic, and then it does a simulated pack. So it takes the actual items that are going to the customer, and after it's passed those through the algorithms, it's actually selecting and testing against that shipping container, really driving that efficiency to 93% or better in regards to cube utilization. Can also do a great job of really looking at orders if you have a percentage of your orders that are going out polybag in shipping, and be able to select a larger percentage through its efficiencies. And that has a very meaningful savings in regards to not only material savings, but also reduced shipping costs. For instance, shipping a product in a polybag through, say, the FedEx zone skipping type logic as an example, can save you $1.50 to $2 per shipment. So if the system can pull an additional few hundred orders a day or 1,000 orders a week into a more efficient shipping methodology, there's real revenue savings and profits being driven to your system. Additionally, looking at looking at products that have glass pack, or some fragile handling, that type of containerization that says, here's how that has to ship based on that particular SKU, is all built in and done during that order release process up front while it's being released. Another feature that is built into many of the advanced warehouse execution platforms is inventory awareness. And by that, to be able to execute advanced order picking, you have to have all of the locations, know what products in the location, and you want that data from the ERP WMS to be able to feed that information. So as we're incrementing picks from a location, we're keeping track of what is the available inventory. So during that order release, we don't want to release orders that doesn't have enough orders, but it doesn't have enough inventory at that location. And we have that ability to real time provide feedback through web messages, through email, text message, so we can alert a supervisor and operator send that information. So if they need to perform a replenishment and the ERP doesn't have the true real-time functionalities, we can enhance that functionality through the inventory awareness module that we have within our software. Secondly, connectivity. When you think of an ERP, WMS, I use that term warehouse glue. It's exactly that. It's using an advanced API. Today, many times moving to web services, but we have dozens of different interfacing tools to talk with legacy systems or talk with or integrate data to systems from file transfer through web services. And the WES layer is really bringing, as I said, leaner processes, more efficient processes to the table, along with managing that automation. And those components would be advanced picking, such as voice picking, pick-to-light, material handling systems, conveyors, sorting systems, autonomous mobile robots for picking, pallet movement, case movement throughout the warehouse. And then lastly, the latest technologies, the advanced technologies are coming out, AMR-based and standard goods-to-person storage picking systems, complemented, united together, and then labeling, packing, shipping, automation, bringing these different technologies where they're all playing together within a unified system. So let's go through some of the components that make that up. So starting at receiving and automation area, companies bringing in containers of goods many times might have 20, 30 or more SKUs within that container. If we can unload that much more efficiently by utilizing power conveyor that can extend in, or now movement of automated autonomous mobile robots are being used in some areas. This is a little bit more traditional, cost-effective solutions that can bring the product in, scan, weigh, dim those containers, perform an audit on the container or an unload of a truck process, apply a label if required for, say, a cross-docking type operation, and then sort by like SKUs to pallet build locations to assist and make it much more efficient to put the product away. This automation sometimes can perform 3, 4, 5 times faster than a traditional manual unloading process. So it's a good area to look at if these are problems and issues within your distribution center. A picking suite. So the picking suite should be broad and have a lot of capabilities. We have within our platform voice and pick-to-light integrated together, and we focus on wearable computers that allow the operators to work hands-free with voice headsets, hand-free scanning. Pick-to-light, working with that, it's united within the same software suite. Integration of order consolidation using put-to-light or an order fulfillment sorter, but the technology is all part of the components within the suite. That integration of the AMRs, allowing the ability to both integrate people and AMRs working together. So synchronizing the movement and coordinating the work between an autonomous mobile robot and people by using voice to unite them within the application. Goods-to-person integration. The backside of a goods-to-person packing system, voice and that pack to the right carton is an ideal technology that complements the performance of picking your items out of a goods-to-person type solution. So what does pick-to-voice really entail? Just a broad overview. Typically compared to a mobile wearable computer or traditional RF terminal in an ERP system, many times that requires screen changing, a lot of key data entry along with scanning. So it lends itself many times to a terminal with a lot of push buttons and key switches on that. And that slows an operator down. So we want voice to direct that process. And if an operator can use eyes focused, hands-free processing, you typically can see the same operation getting a 30, sometimes 50% boost in productivity. We want zero voice training, and we want an operator to be able to put on a technology within 15 to 20 minutes, they're getting productive. Over the course of a few weeks, their productivity continues to increase. But a technology that's easy enough that could be used by a temporary worker is really where the latest generation of voice is going. So the processes again and the instructions: lean, fast, short voice. Replace most of the confirmations as much as you can with a scan validation of the product, location, validate lot, serial capture if that's the requirement. So voice gives you a prompt to do so. And then that scan validation validates that operation. And then if it's a quantity pick of 3, that's a real short message response. The customer or the operator is really utilizing a really small voice message. And then as you complete your task, what are the next available work? The system should be able to drive them to the next available highest priority task. These are all incorporated really within our voice picking suite. Batch order picking. Many of our projects start with a manual push cart. Depending on the business, size of the operation, and what gives the return on investment, the batch picking process could be a mobile push cart, or it could move to an autonomous mobile robot. Again, we're enforcing much more efficient processes. With the autonomous mobile robots, we're able to move larger quantity of orders, so 25 or more orders can be picked at one time, increasing that picking density, driving higher efficiencies, and more importantly, the ability to create that and pick to the carton, pick to the shelf, pick to totes, pick full cases at the same time. All of those can be incorporated into the picking process or part of the components. Speed picking, sweeping out all of the signals at the same time. And if there are multiple zones occurring in the picking, be able to pick across those zones and have that consolidation process we'll be touching on a little later. So flexibility. As I mentioned, we started with batch push carts back now 12, 14 years ago when we first started with voice. We have that functionality. Now we've added the autonomous mobile robot. So we have flexibility in that picking suite where we can have all 3 components available. You can start off with batch push carts. You can always do a discrete order pick, maybe at the end of the day, or you have a fast cutoff and you need to rapidly be able to pick something. And then 2, you can lock in and obviously use the autonomous mobile robot. So having the ability of all 3 of those technologies to work together simultaneously within the picking process. AMRs, we want to touch on that more in the next generation of AMRs. And those are really the AMRs that are being used in goods-to-person systems. And why would you look at that performance, that capability? And much of that is around, it's a much more scalable technology. It's also a much easier entry point to justify. There's not a lot of, precision steel installation requirements. It's really shelves, autonomous mobile robots, and delivery to pick stations. So you can start with a 2 or 3 station system and scale that business, scale that operation as your requirements grow. So it's a very efficient way to start in adding the next generation automation into your operations. There's also this parallel order processing. Not all technologies meet the requirements. They all need to really work together. And for instance, your A-mover products may be better suited outside of the goods to person. Data analysis study takes a little bit of time to be able to really select and say, what is the technology and how should, what SKUs and velocity SKUs and size of SKUs should be matched to each of those different technologies. But if your A-movers are outside, how do we synchronize that picking and allow parallel picking processes or unite the picks that come from the goods to person system into the other picking zones? How do we go out and batch pick possibly the real slow movers, bring those forward, what we call dynamic forward pick process that pulls those forwards, put them along the path for synchronizing the picks from the goods to person and from, say, a pick module system. And that's really the role of the WES, uniting and taking these technologies, synchronizing their release and coordinating that work across each of these different areas from goods to person, voice, AMR-based picking, and also the moving of the slower goods from the dog pound area, as I like to say. the order consolidation. This is an example of a put wall. So in goods to person pick stations, on either side of the picker is basically a wall. As the product is being delivered to that station, the robot brings the shelf to the pick station. On either side, as they create the pick, typically using lights to direct now that put to the order shelf. And order consolidation can happen, as you see here, in a standard location without a goods to person or within the goods to person. But then the back side of that put wall really is where enabling a person with voice allows it to close out the order, light would light up, directing them that this last pick is completed for the order. When that occurs, what we're doing is using voice to direct that person to that location to pack that order out. They scan that location, they get the message of what carton size they need, and there's pre-made cartons with barcodes on it where they scan and consolidate that pack process, and we're packing directly then to that shipping container, which allows that to flow then to our automated packing solutions. It's just kind of an overview. This is another major focus of the Numina Group in pack and ship automation. We have a product we call Pack, and Pack is really a componentized aspect of a pack and ship line. It starts with the ability to audit those cartons that are coming through using weight, vision auto, capture a digital image of the product and validate its weight. If it fails weight, it gets sent to QC. Passes that, we can go into automated document insertion, coupon insertion, promotional card insertion. So where it's traditionally people doing it, utilizing, technologies that take those touches out of the operation. Then it flows into pack and sealing, which can be semi-automatic tapers, automatic tapers, closers, the latest technologies like pack size type technologies that we flow orders into that automatically create cartons based on the size of the cube of the items. All those components of pack and ship can be put together within our technologies. And then lastly, a very important part is really automating the manifesting process. Cody touched on mainly the WMS and ERPs come with manual workstations for doing that. Works very effective on a certain size level of business, but as you continue to grow, you're putting more and more people at those processes, at manual workstations, a lot of manual touching, moving of products. We automate that entire manifesting and labeling process, scanning, weighing, dimensioning, that final check of the order, utilizing that information to select the most efficient carrier, and then printing and applying the carrier shipping labels, scanning and validating the labeling process, applying compliance labels if it requires a ship fulfillment, let's say fulfillment through Amazon or Walmart order fulfillment, there's a specific label, or any of those retailer carrier labels, e-retailer type labels can be automatically applied, validated, and then lastly, brought and sorted down to, based on a shipping method, either LTL pallet building or directly fluid load right into a carrier trailer for a particular carrier. So all those technologies come to play and can be scaled and built based on the business requirement, size, and operation. And then just kind of a graphical overview touches on everything that we just were speaking about. In the upper part of the picture, we see the goods to person system where the operator is at a workstation being able to pack those cartons from the backside, as I was talking about, using voice to direct the shipment from the order consolidation shelf to the right size carton. Those orders now flow through, can be connected through conveyor system or AMRs to move through a high mover area to pick up additional items and SKUs so that order flow, cart picking, AMR based or push carts in the shelf areas that allow bringing those carts and dropping them along the conveyor, and then the flow of those going into that pack and ship automation line we just described. And then finally, the cartons are sealed, labeled, validated, and flowing right through to the shipping processing area. And capturing all that information, so taking touches out and giving you the information of the flow from what I like to call that carton history, from its journey of when it started through all of its picking, packing, shipping process, QC process that occurs. All of those, that data is collected and is available and integrated back into the business system. So just in summary, there's a number of components. A WES should be scalable. It should allow the flexibility to start with one or two or three different automation components that add value to your warehouse operation, but should have the entire family of technologies that you have an ability as your business grows and as operations change. There's technologies that you could be looking at that will further enhance and improve the productivity within your distribution center. And with that, we'd like to hand that back over to the team to see if there's some questions that we could answer. And hopefully we found our presentation to be a little stimulating for applications within your operations.
Yeah, and before we hand it back over to you, Roberto, for questions, I think first and foremost, great job, Dan, in highlighting kind of the key differences. I think what I want to call out is ERPs and warehouse management software applications' primary function is to receive in purchase orders and sales orders, to maintain an item master and all the dimensions associated with an item master, and to make sure that we have an accurate view of inventory at a bin level within a warehouse. Full stop. Where warehouse execution software focuses is on the optimization and the utilization and the integration of automation. And fundamentally, we believe that should be the focus here in 2023 as we try to fight against the labor market, as we try to increase the throughput of our buildings. We're deriving value off of execution software more so than we are the databases that are holding our master data. So with that, Roberto, why don't we pass it over to you to field some of the team's or the audience's questions, rather.
Sure. We do have some questions that have come in, and thank you both, Cody and Dan. I'll start with you, Dan. First question that's come in here: what if I already have a WMS? Do I need WES?
Well, I think we pretty well have covered that question quite a bit. It all depends on your business requirements, your order volume requirements. If you're a small operation and everything's working well and you don't see the need for labor or reducing labor in your warehouse operation, that's a question I would say is probably well suited to when you have outgrown it and you can't get your orders out. Everything we were touching on in regards to distribution centers performance, it's when you hit that bottleneck, when you can't get your orders out, that's when we really start seeing customers looking to say, what can you do to make my business better?
Yeah, and I'll piggyback on that. I think, hopefully we address that question throughout the discussion today. I think broadly speaking, though, if you're desiring or needing advanced capabilities above and beyond what your WMS is providing, that's a very good indication that you might need additional capabilities through an execution software. And then the second point there is, if you're evaluating automation and you've had a level of difficulty in integrating automation into your WMS, that is also a very good indication that you might need a supplemental layer of software, in the form of a warehouse execution software.
Oh, okay, good point. Dan, I'll start with you again for this next one. The question is, I want to automate my warehouse operation, but how do I know which automation is right for us?
Well, we touched on it a little bit in that it is complex today. There's a lot of choices in regards to technologies. So we like to take a data-driven approach with the customer. Let's develop a roadmap. Let's do that comparative analysis of different technologies. What are the performance that you would get through traditional material handling, pick modules, or the push cart, batch push carts? What do the AMRs, what does goods to person look like in your operation? Is it a good fit? And those are the things that we do in that discovery, data analysis, what we like to say a design engineering study that gets us the roadmap. And gets us basically working with the customer in that selection process. So that would be my I think first step that we recommend to most of the customers. Let's get that roadmap and select the right type of automation that makes sense for your business.
Yeah, and maybe a few more words there, Dan. The automation landscape has never been more cloudy. Like, there's so many new entrants, there's so many new technologies, there's so many new vendors that have come into the space. I think, fundamentally, it's the job of myself and my team to keep our fingers on the pulse of that landscape so that we can speak intelligently to the incumbents and to the new entrants. I think philosophically we have a few core tenets. We want to maximize the utilization of any automation investment that we make. We also want to design enough capacity to handle today's requirements without over-designing it in a way where we are expecting too much growth to come into the operation. And thirdly, we want to rely on technology that has been proven to be trustworthy, and look at bleeding edge technology only when it's not mission critical to the overall operation. So we have a few principles kind of guiding paths, if you will, when we take our clients through an automation selection, and those are a few of them.
Okay. Another question, Dan, I'll start with you once again. Do you recommend a phased approach to implementing some of these automation solutions?
And the answer is depends. Yes, many times a phased approach really can make sense for a customer. However, a lot of times during the data analysis, when we start looking at processes, and I'll keep it simple, we look at automating a picking process, and we see, hey, what does it do to the customer's operation in regards to productivity gains when we've added advanced cartonization and a better cluster or batch picking process and added technologies they're not currently using. And we see this increase in 50% or so of order throughput. Now, if I don't add the second phase, such as the pack and ship, you're going to lose some of that productivity. You're going to cause a bottleneck because you've accelerated one part of your order fulfillment operation and neglected the main part. So many times it's the 1+1, if you say it's picking and the other one is packing, or pack and ship, 1+1+1 doesn't just equal 3. The two of them the 2 or 3 automation processes together can accelerate that to 5, 6, 7 times that performance within the operation. So that's what we want to do with the customer and show them, hey, this is really the best and wisest investment, buying these components working together for your operation.
Yeah, really well said, Dan. When we think about phasing in projects, the first thing we think about is maintaining an equilibrium of throughput between picking, packing, and shipping. Like, imagine your commute to work. It's 20 miles away, and for the first mile, you might be able to go 100 miles an hour. But if you're at a standstill for the next 19 miles, your average speed is really what we care about. Your average speed throughout your journey to your office, if you will, is the objective that we're designing to. And so if we double pick rates in picking, but we fail to increase the capacity in pack and ship, you're still only as fast as your slowest function. So phasing in projects is always taken in the context of kind of full outbound building throughput.
Okay, good points. Another question, Dan. This question is: my ERP is lacking some of the basic WMS functions you mentioned, like replenishment and the detailed inventory management. Do I need a new ERP or a new WMS before I can step into automation?
That's a 1 week engineering design and analysis question. And if you really have no basic warehouse management capabilities and you lack the ability to, as Cody talked about, manage forward inventory, manage reserve inventory, and have a count of where your products are, then you're really likely needing a WMS as part of your first investment. And you may indeed find that by upgrading your ERP, maybe the current version you have, or looking at another ERP vendor that really does have the core WMS functionalities we discussed earlier.
Yeah, and Dan, I think where organizations go wrong is when they need a few additional capabilities out of their ERP. Then they begin to look into the WMS space, and then they go and buy, call it a tier 1 WMS that has roughly 50% of the same capabilities as their ERP, but they're paying an arm and a leg for it. I think what we try to guide our customers to is what is the path of least resistance to be able to start getting automation in your building. Fundamentally, the only value creation is when you start looking at automated processes and automated equipment. There's relatively little value creation in having this capability or that capability out of an ERP or a WMS. What we're trying to do is we're trying to engineer faster performance in each of those functional areas. So a lot of times what we'll do is we'll guide a customer into a very light WMS package in that scenario to accomplish the requirements that they need in order for them to get into automation as quickly and as cost effectively as they can.
Good. I think we have time for one other. This one's come in. Right. It's about timing. How long does an automation project take from start to finish?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take that one, Dan. Yeah, totally depends, right? Like we have engagements that can take 8 to 10 weeks. We have engagements that can take, 6 to 12 months. And I think we have to be really respectful to our clients in providing the clarity and the transparency as to what those lead times look like. Most often organizations come to us when they have a compelling event, right? When they're trying to achieve a certain performance in a warehouse in anticipation of volume coming in anticipation of labor not being available, in anticipation of a new building going up. And so it's really, really critical that when we work with our clients, that we work backwards from those critical milestones. And there are times where we have to make business decisions around the automation relative to the timeline. We might not be able to go to our number one option from an automation standpoint if that means deferring out the project n number of months. We live in a reality of lead times. I tend to think that we move far faster than our clients can move. And that is really our goal as a business, right? We need to stay one step ahead from a speed to market perspective than our clients can move themselves, so that we can always hit expectations from that perspective. So again, I think it's very relative to the scope of the project. I think we shared with you kind of the gamut of complexity that can come with automation solutions, and depending upon where you fall on that spectrum, you'll find different lead times.
Thank you. Thank you both for your insights and for your detailed explanation of what these systems involved and how they map to the needs. For our audience, this does conclude our session. Keep in mind Numina's offer for engagement and advice. And thank you for attending.